Hello, I'm Brian Davids, and welcome to the Hollywood Reporter Presents a Q&A featuring the filmmakers and star of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, the second installment in the Spider-Verse trilogy, which is currently contending for Best Animated Feature at the upcoming 96th Academy Awards. Let's kick things off with writer-producers Phil Lord and Chris Miller. You guys had the very tall order of following up a film that won the Oscar. It breathed new life into the medium. Live action Spider-Man, Tom Holland called it the best Spider-Man film ever made. So when you wrap that first film, how many steps ahead were you? How much groundwork was done on what would become Across the Spider-Verse?
We had an idea of what we wanted to do from a thematic story standpoint, and we also knew that we were just scratching the surface visually of what was possible. And the fact that people embraced the film, for its sort of complex emotional themes, but also for its, never before seen visuals, made us feel like, well, we can't just do the same thing again. That's the safe and easy thing to do. But the whole brand of it was originality. So we knew that we couldn't just do more of the same. And really the way that the first film sort of opened the door as a spark to show studio heads who control the money what is possible and what people will go see and want to see. We thought this could be like kick down the door and start a bonfire and hopefully, wake up people who control the purse strings as to how varied a film can look.
We used it as a confidence builder and to put wind in our sails and to make us attempt something more radical and more sophisticated, more dramatic. We didn't. You can use this opportunity to play it safe or like play not to lose, but I think we would have lost if we did it that way. I think the audience expectation is for us to go for it and to break new ground. So that's what we tried to do.
We're also joined today by co-directors Kemp Powers, Joaquim Dos Santos, and Justin K. Thompson. You guys had very big shoes to fill as well, and you've certainly filled them. But at first, was it a daunting commitment to make? Were there lots of long walks and sleepless nights before committing?
Definitely lots of long walks. Yeah, I was on pretty early at the tail end of the first one. I've told, a version of this, but like it sort of it's worth saying as much as possible because there was sort of a before Spider-Verse time in feature animation and a post Spider-Verse time. So both Phil and Chris screened the film for me. It didn't have any credits at that point. The film wraps, they're sitting right in front of me and they turn around and they go like, yeah, man. So like we did that. Like how do we really take the governor off and go nuts? And I was like, I mean, nobody had seen anything like that to that point. So that was definitely a reckoning, a sort of artistic reckoning for me. Like, what the hell can I bring to the table here that's going to do beyond that? And any nerves that I felt, both Phil, Chris, Kemp, everybody, Justin, they sort of assured me and said, like, look, if this works, it's going to open the doors for us to really, really take some chances and have fun and try all the crazy stuff we want to try.
Kemp, were you hired before Soul came out?
Yeah, I was actually. That was the big thing. I was told from my friends at Pixar, like, you can go work on this other movie, but you can't let anyone know until after Soul comes out. So I was working on it in secret for a while before Soul came out. And the reason it kind of came on my radar is because they actually brought the film down to Pixar and screened it there before it came out in theaters. So I was in that audience with my fellow Pixarians, taking it into the Spider-Verse, and just like everyone else, I was pretty blown away. So, as we were locking picture on Soul and I was kind of exploring what I wanted to do next, I've been living up in the Bay Area, so I was coming home to LA. They were like, do you have any other interest in animation? And my first response was like, well, I'd love to kind of see what else they're doing over at Sony, because there seems to be no rules over there. It's the Wild West. And that very quickly led to a meeting with first Karen Tolliver, and then Christine Belson, and then Phil and Chris, who told me that, we're making another Spider-Verse. And I was like, oh, word? And they're like, yeah, you wanna help direct it? And yeah, that's kind of one of those offers you can't refuse kind of moments, because to be perfectly honest, I was really happy with what we did with Soul, and I was kind of like, all right, I feel like I can't do anything different or better than this. And then I saw Into the Spider-Verse and was like, oh wow, there's so many different things you can do with this medium, so many different ways you can try to tell a story. So against my own better judgment, I didn't take any rest and just wrapped on Soul on a Friday and started on this sucker on a Monday, and and joined the team, and do not regret it one bit, because I really am proud of the work that all of us have done. I think it really, the goal for me wasn't make it better than the first one. It was do something different that could be appreciated just as much, but possibly in a different way.
And Justin, you were a production designer on the first film, so you must have had some idea of what you were getting into, right?
Yeah, actually. And I had a good idea of what I was getting into from having worked with Chris and Phil for more than 15 years. I had been a production designer working with them. I worked on the Cloudy movies with them and a lot of other things, and did the first Spider-Verse film. And the thing about Phil and Chris and myself is, like, we've always tried to do things in a different way. And that's what I've always done my whole career. But they have also, like, instilled in me, and I've learned from them how to just, it's all about how you externalize what's going on internally with the characters. And so really moving into directing on this film was really just an extension of what I've already been doing with them. And except this time it was like, we're not going to tell you what to do anymore. You just have to figure it out yourself. So it was kind of an amazing journey into the unknown for me of, oh, I had to rely on my co-directors and myself, and found myself in the room trying to come up with something new. And it was actually a really amazing to be able to be that close, to work so tightly with the story, with the characters, and find ways to bring whatever their internal story was onto the screen. For example, with Gwen, and like, it's so great that Hailee was here, because with Gwen and her dimension, it was really just an amazing opportunity to show what it was like to take the internal life of a woman who was, and put it on screen behind her, and say for her on screen what she couldn't say with her words. And if she couldn't cry, let the paint drip down the walls, and let the rooms cry for her. And if she was sad, let the world turn sad with her. If she was angry, let the world turn angry with her. And it was amazing to develop something like that. And it was really like the logical extension, I think, of what I've been doing my whole career. So, and just coming up with new ideas and new ways to do them. And that's like what I live for. So it was an opportunity I couldn't pass up.
Hailee Steinfeld, thank you for your patience. I would argue that Gwen is the co-lead of this film. The first 20 minutes belong to her, and she's a huge factor the rest of the way. But from a previous conversation, it's my understanding that even you were a bit surprised by the significance of her role by the time you saw it for the first time. Is that correct?
I was. I think I was just so many things, but so excited to see for the first time again what we'd been working on for so long, and understanding that we were going to be diving a little bit deeper into Gwen's world this time around, and that I had this opportunity to grow with her and had over the last few years. And I think, with the first film, I very quickly understood why this character is so loved by so many around the world. And I was just elated when I found out that we were giving those fans the chance to see more of her. And yeah, I'll never forget when I saw the film for the first time, I was like, this is you said first 20 minutes. Is that what it is? It's like, it's such an amazing experience. I think seeing the first film, I'll never forget seeing that for the first time, and then seeing the second one, having experienced what I did this second time around, and falling more in love with this team and this character and this story as a whole. It was just, it blew me away, as I think many people.
I remember
So
a really cool moment, Hailee, is when you finally saw it, you actually wanted to go re-record some of your lines because you actually, when you finally saw some of the actual footage, you realized what was really going on in the scene because you have to imagine it for so long. And I remember the profound impact, and you actually wanted to go back and adjust your performance when you saw that, when you realized what was really happening in the scene. It was really cool how involved you were with creating that character.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's an amazing thing. I will say, first of all, it's not often you get to work with such an incredibly collaborative team. And I think in the past, there have been moments in my career where you get that call to go do reshoots or you get that call to go do ADR and you're like, oh my God, I'm in the middle of something else, or I'm in a completely different headspace. And with this, it was like I would look forward to getting that call because it was just another chance to get in there and perfect and better the moment. And that's what all of this was. It was just like a moment to moment thing that we would go in and dissect and fine tune. And I was so grateful for the opportunity to continue to go back and do that. I now have a totally different outlook and a lot more respect when it comes to those getting that extra chance, those ADR moments or those reshoots, and in this case, these recording sessions. But thanks for mentioning that. I was so grateful that you guys were open to that.
So to those of you not named Hailee, 3 of your actors, including Hailee, all said a version of the same line, that the first time they read the script was when they saw the movie for the first time. You didn't begin with a fully formed concrete script. You kind of found the movie as you're making the movie. And it actually reminds me of the way that the recent Mission Impossible films are made. But you can't argue with the results that you're getting. But what makes this the right approach for these films?
Well, you can, the thing about an animated film is each part of the process makes the previous step obsolete. So when there is a script, but it's a guess of like what the movie is going to need to be. And then you get into a scene with Hailee and Shea Wiggum, and they are bringing something, of themselves to it. Then it gets into the edit suite and our amazing edit team led by Mike Andrews, who's like amazing guys, edited Shrek and a bunch of other cool stuff. He's like cutting it up and going like, oh, I like how she did this thing. And if you cut it against him, and maybe the scene's more about that. So it goes like that for 3 or 4 years. And you can either try to tightly control that, and then you only get what was on the page, or you embrace the fact that it's iterative, that the story artists, the animators, directors are all going to contribute something. And you understand that it's not a linear process, but rather how this prop is designed or how this world looks is going to influence how the scene plays out. Then you suddenly get a much richer film.
Yeah, one of the hardest things to get in an animated film is a sense of spontaneity. Because everything is planned and there's a meeting about everything. How many beads of sweat are on someone's forehead is something that someone has to build. It's nothing just happens. And so to be able to have, a sense of what the story is, but give room to the actors to find the scenes and workshop them like a play allows you to get the best version of that and allows you to capture moments that feel spontaneous because they are, and then you hang on to them like precious jewels.
Yeah, and also, everyone knows that animated films are produced out of sequence. They're also not cast at the same time. We have some cast members like Hailee and Shameik who came on from day one, but there were other characters that didn't exist in the beginning of the process that we created the characters, worked them in, use scratch actors, and then finally, when we committed to their impact on the story, then we cast somebody. And then the first time you record them, you realize something is a little bit off and it requires changes. So, every element of this is kind of done out of sequence. But I think that, like they just said, I think that gives us the best results. Imagine just having to commit to the first draft of anything you did. that's never going to be the the best version of it. We got to do the bad versions to get to the good version.
And I think the same is true even for the visuals. Like if we just committed to our first take on the visuals and we didn't respond to the performance, to Hailee's performance or any of our amazing voice cast performance, or we didn't respond to the performance of the animation, and the movie would have suffered. There were times when like you would, like, Hailee would give us a read that was just more interesting, even though it was a longer take than maybe we had originally planned. So we made the picture suit that, and we'd hear like her take a breath, and her dad's drawing a gun on her and arresting her, and you'd hear the pain in her voice. Well, we would move brushstrokes to try to like accent that, and we would like lengthen the shots, and we'd work with like our visual effects supervisor to make sure that the shot like was really underscoring what the character was feeling. So the movie got better because of that whole process.
Justin, you keep referencing the scenes between Gwen and her father, and they're by far my favorite scenes in the film. They were from the first screening as well, but major credit to all the artists and animators who brought us those scenes. All of the scenes, of course, but those in particular, they belong in the Louvre, if you ask me. But Hailee, you first recorded those scenes alone, but then you were called back to record them with Shay. Could you feel the difference right away?
Oh my God. Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, I still giggle to myself about having gone through the majority of the first film, if not all of it, having no joint recording sessions. And now, while the actors in this film are so incredibly talented that when you hear their performance in your ears, it's as if they're in the room, but there is nothing compares to that real time banter and emotion. And again, we were given so much freedom and space to explore and experiment. And those scenes with Shay, I think this is another thing I found really interesting about the process, because when you're on camera and you're shooting a scene, you really I feel like I'm always somewhere in between. The more I do it, the more I understand it. But then the more you do it, you risk losing some sense of spontaneity or that magic, because you've done it so many times. But I think I in this case loved the fact that I had time to do it on my own, and it gave me a moment to understand the scene for what it was, and there is this sense of like isolation, I guess, that was there, being alone and doing it by myself, and then having understood that side of it, and then putting Shay in the room and having him do it with me. There was just a whole new level of emotion. It just became so much more complex, and yeah. And again, we went on for hours on that one scene, just to like, we would break them up too, and one scene would be broken up into the first 3 or 4 lines, and we would go for forever on that. And it again, that opportunity to get in there and really find it and dig, and yeah, it made the world's difference. I love Shay too. We had a great time, and somehow found a bunch of laughter in between all those takes. But it was definitely a heavy moment, and I was so grateful to have him there and be able to carry it with him.
Joaquim, voice actors all seem to crave the group recording sessions, and
Yeah.
I know Hollywood schedules are a tangled web, but do you think this will ever become the standard?
I mean, you'd hope, right? Is that I think as animated films, I mean, we, on this crew, and hopefully this is sort of permeating the industry, these are just films, that we have the benefit of sort of taking time and working scenes through, and we're not losing daylight necessarily, but we are losing hours. But I think as animation is sort of more widely accepted, I think to the methods by which we record the performers and treat, all of it sort of gets to be elevated. I mean, I'm just so excited that this film has sort of chipped away a little bit at that sort of long-standing I don't know, delineation between an animated film and a film. They're just films.
There is an approach to this, to like recording, that's often like, okay, like do this line 3 times, you know,
Mm.
it can lead to things that sound kind of trained or can, you know. And the thing about this entire production is we're trying to maximize every crew person's individual creativity, right? So that's just an example of how you can get, if you can get in underneath the first like superficial way somebody might say something and really get to like, okay, what would make this personal to you? Then suddenly like that drives the rest of the movie. So the animation team, there's like a single animator in Vancouver who's going to animate that shot, and they're going to bring something of themselves to it and be inspired by the spin that Hailee puts on the ball.
And I will say they're encouraged too, right? The animators are encouraged too to sort of bring the not the sort of unusual takes. You know, they'll sort of go through all the motions of like, yes, those are the ones that we see and all the things. Now, what the hell does your cousin do when he gets angry at a thing?
Right. It's a tremendous platform for like watching performance, right? Animation can be that way. And I think once you get out of like the stock moves, you know, then suddenly it can really bring the movie to life.
Could you do that again?
Justin's,
do another
Justin's,
stop.
yeah, Justin's favorite is
Oh, my favorite. What? What? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Every animated film.
Yeah.
Well, Phil and Chris, let's close on this. You know, Oscar voters, they're about to head to the polls, so we probably want to give them some kind of a tease for the third film. So what can you offer them at this moment?
Our hope is that we break as much new ground as we did on this last one, that we continue to surprise and be emotionally satisfying and visually and sonically stunning.
Yeah, and to demonstrate that those things are commercial. You know, what I love about this season of pictures is, you know, among the top best picture contenders like Oppenheimer and Barbie, like those are like very avant-garde, unusual, idiosyncratic, filmmaker-driven films. And I think this one is no different. And it proves that when you make something that audiences can't get anywhere else and they have never seen before, and it's emotionally transporting, it looks like no other movie and sounds like no other movie, like that is a commercial proposition.
Well, to the Spider-Verse Brain Trust, best of luck come Oscar Sunday, and thank you for joining the Hollywood Reporter Presents Q&A series.